Welcome to the latest video on my channel, which is aimed at gold investors, but this is going to be quite an interesting topic because it's something that has been in the news but not the mainstream news. So a lot of you probably haven't heard of what's happened to the Egyptian pound. I'm going to be going back over time and looking at what's happened since the 90s and some key events, because 2022 was a terrible year for the Egyptian pound, and I'm going to explain why. Make sure that you check out other videos and subscribe if you like this sort of content. So a little bit of a recap on the Egyptian pound. So it was previously pegged to the pound sterling when sterling was the reserve currency of the world, and then it switched to a peg against the US dollar, and it was actually pegged at one Egyptian pound to $2.30. Now remember that valuation, because that is quite extreme to what we're seeing at the moment. The Egyptian pound was floated in '89, and throughout the 90s there was quite a lot of stability in the exchange rate between the Egyptian pound and the US dollar. In the year 2001, the Egyptian pound was repegged against the US dollar, and they held it within a sort of relatively tight trading range valuation. But in 2016, as you'll see on the charts, this completely the peg was blown apart by the markets.
Ornum is a precious metal bullion company based in central London. The company is known for sourcing very rare gold coins, as well as their precious metal market reports, which are published on their website each week. Download the latest market report for free by visiting the Ornum website today.
So here we are. This is the Egyptian pound against the US dollars. So the chart basically shows you how many dollars an Egyptian pound buys. And you can see that throughout the 90s it was held quite constantly. So it was very there wasn't much volatility in the exchange rate at all. Started to creep up at the turn of the millennium, and then you can see that there was a devaluation before the Egyptian government or central bank managed to bring the trading range back down. It was forming a base around 5 Egyptian pounds to 1 US dollar. And then you see the craziness, and I'm going to talk about some of the factors that caused this, and look into this in a more microscopic view. So what happened to the Egyptian pound? It was let's go straight to 2016, which is where we saw the big volatility. So there was a 48% depreciation or devaluation against the US dollar, and the reason for this was that the Cairo had to agree to allow the pound to float on the foreign exchange in exchange for an IMF loan. So this is the International Monetary Fund, which is it's not a lender of last resort, but they intervene when a country becomes economically troubled. So some of you might know that this isn't just emerging economies or low income nations. The UK was actually subject to an IMF loan. They had to be bailed out by the IMF back in the 1970s. So it's something that could happen. It happens quite frequently, and it could happen to pretty much anyone. And so the US dollar could buy just under 9 Egyptian pounds in 2016, or in October 2016. But by December 2016, this fell to the US dollar being able to buy just under 20 Egyptian pounds. So you can really see that there's an unraveling in the exchange rate of the Egyptian pound, because there was a lot of devaluation in this currency. And this is something really interesting, because I only recently found this out. You hear about in the mainstream news, such as Financial Times and other Bloomberg and other stations such as that, they will say that a nation has been given a loan by the IMF. But I read a book called Goodbye Great Britain, and in this it actually says, and I'm quoting directly here, that a loan from the IMF is not, strictly speaking, a loan. It's a transaction where the member, such as Egypt in this case, purchases gold and other foreign currencies from the fund in exchange for its own currency. So the Egyptian government or the Reserve Bank of Egypt would have given the IMF a load of Egyptian pounds, and in exchange would have had a basket of other currencies such as euro, US dollar, gold. But this is where it gets quite specific and unique to Egypt, because if you read the bottom, conditionality becomes fiercer as the amount of support required increases. So the IMF don't just give this out no strings. If you go to the IMF, you're doing a deal with the devil, because the IMF will want you to basically adopt austerity in a way. It will come up with a plan and say you need to implement these conditions in exchange for this support package that we are giving you. And part of these conditions has caused the Egyptian pound to collapse in 2022, which we will get to. So in 2022, there's actually been strictly speaking, between January 22 and January 23, there's been three separate devaluations. It has been an absolute nightmare for the Egyptian population. Since March 2022, the Egyptian pound is down 51% against the US dollar. Now, I will caveat this because obviously, as many of you know, that the US dollar actually had quite a lot of strength in 2022. It was the strongest of the G10 currencies. When you look at the Orinum report, which shows you how the G10 their currencies are performing against gold, they was pretty much down across the board, but the US dollar was down the least. So in December 2022, and this is where the latest devaluation has occurred, Cairo agreed that the central bank would not intervene in the markets to defend the value of the pound. So basically, what a central bank would do, and again, this happened in the 90s in the UK. So the UK was part of an exchange rate mechanism with the Deutschmark and I believe the French franc. So but it was mainly the Deutschmark from what I remember. So the pound was in an exchange rate mechanism where it would be managed, almost pegged within a range. And Germany had different fundamentals economically to the UK, so the pound started to weaken. So what happened was the Bank of England began to defend the pound. It was raising interest rates and it was selling off some of its foreign reserves to buy pounds. So basically artificially supporting the pound. And that's what Egypt said that they would not do. They said, you know what, unless there is a lot of extreme volatility, if the pound falls, we will not defend it. We will not go to market, sell our foreign reserves and buy back Egyptian pounds to support and artificially inflate the exchange rate. And that caused, as you can see, that caused some big problems in the exchange rate. So this is kind of zoomed out just for context, and you can see that there is, especially on the next slide, you can see a stair stepping. So this shows you the Egyptian pound against the US dollar pretty much the calendar year 2022. This is being filmed at the end of January, so I've actually included the latest data here for you, but you can see here that there's a massive stair step where we've had three massive devaluations, and a lot of this is down to the fact that, especially in December, when they said that they would not defend the value of the Egyptian pound on the foreign exchanges, if you're a spec, you want to speculate, you know that you can short the Egyptian pound and you're going to have no resistance against their national bank. So that just opened up the doors for the currency to collapse even more. So what does this mean for the people of Egypt? Well, prices, so this is the official rate of inflation, and as many people are aware, the official rate of inflation is what the government tells you the inflation rate is. It doesn't necessarily mean that that is the rate of inflation. But according to their own records, the prices year on year in December were up nearly 22%, which is pretty crazy. The highest pace of price rises since the end of 2017, which is just before or just after, sorry, the 2016 devaluation. And part of this is that Egypt is a massive importer of fuel, but also food. They import most of their food, just like Japan. And when when Russia invaded Ukraine, obviously the price of wheat went through the roof because Ukraine is a massive exporter of wheat. So this sort of exacerbated the trade deficit, and also a lot of the people that rely on these basic food staples, they were paying ridiculous prices, which caused inflation to go higher. So this compounded the whole issue for Egypt. And just a quick reminder, so this is what the Orionum precious metal market reports look like. Go to the website and download these. They're uploaded, I think, every Sunday. So you can go back and review how gold, silver, and platinum have performed over time. Thanks for your time, and remember to subscribe for the next video.